The mating ceremony was supposed to be the best day of Kael Winters' life. Instead, it became the night her world ended. She stood alone in the center of the Shadowfang Great Hall, wearing a simple ivory dress that had belonged to her mother. The lace was thin in places, yellowed by years of careful storage, and it smelled faintly of lavender and loss. Around her, 400 wolves gathered in silk and hammered leather, their eyes gleaming with the particular hunger that came from watching someone else's fate be decided. At the far end of the hall stood Draven Blackwell. 3 months ago, the mate bond had snapped into place with the violence of a struck match held to gasoline. His scent, dark pine and winter thunder had branded itself into her lungs, marking him as the other half of her soul. From that night forward, every breath she took had been for him. Draven Blackwell was everything a future alpha should be. Broad-shouldered, impossibly tall, with ink-black hair and eyes the color of molten gold. He was the firstborn son of Alpha Kael Blackwell, destined to rule the most powerful pack in the Northern Territories. And in the deepest chamber of her heart, Kael had believed, truly believed, that he was hers. But as she looked at him now, her hope began to curdle. Draven stood rigid, jaw locked. He wasn't looking at her with pride. He was looking at her like she was a stain on the evening. Beside him stood Vivian Ashford, platinum blonde, blood-red gown, pale hand resting on Draven's arm with the quiet ownership of someone who had already won. "Begin!" commanded Alpha Kael Blackwell from his throne. The pack elder stepped forward with the ceremonial chalice and silver blade. "Draven Blackwell, son of Kael, step forward and claim your mate before the moon goddess and this assembled pack." Kael held her breath. She took one trembling step forward, her fingers reaching toward the man she loved. Draven stepped forward, but he didn't walk toward her. He turned his back on Kael and faced the crowd. "I, Draven Blackwell, future alpha of the Shadowfang Pack," his voice rang cold and absolute, "do hereby formally and publicly reject Kael Winters as my fated mate." The hall erupted. The words hit her stomach like a fist. Kael's knees buckled. She grabbed the edge of the nearest table, her nails cracking against the oak, blood welling beneath them. "What?" she whispered. Draven's golden eyes found hers at last. They were flat, dead. "You are wolfless, Kael Winters," he said, each word a blade. "You possess no rank, no power, no bloodline worth preserving. To claim you would weaken my house. I will not take a Luna who cannot shift, who cannot defend herself, who cannot produce strong heirs." "I'm not wolfless." Her voice cracked like thin ice. "My wolf is dormant." The healer said, "Enough." Draven's alpha aura exploded outward, slamming into her chest and stealing the words from her throat. "I will not bind my soul to a human pretending to be a wolf." He turned to Vivian and took her hand, their fingers interlaced like a lock clicking shut. "I choose Vivian Ashford," he announced. "She is strong, pure-blooded. She will give me heirs worthy of this pack. She is everything a Luna should be." Something physically snapped inside Kael's chest. The mate bond began to fray, tearing itself from her very soul like roots ripped from soil. It felt as though her ribs were being pried apart, leaving her heart exposed and bleeding in the open air. "Draven, please." She was sobbing now. She couldn't stop. "Please, don't do this. The goddess chose us. This bond is sacred. Please." For a single agonizing heartbeat, something flickered behind his golden eyes. Pain, regret. But Vivian leaned close and whispered something, and whatever poison she poured worked. Draven's expression hardened into stone. "Leave," he said flatly. "You have until sunrise to gather your belongings and vacate Shadowfang lands. If you are still here when the sun rises, you will be removed by force." Kael looked around desperately. Neighbors whose children she'd watched, friends she thought she'd made. Every single one of them looked away. She was truly, utterly alone. Kael turned and ran. She didn't stop until the packhouse lights were distant pinpricks behind her. She ran deep into the ancient forest, miles past the boundaries, her white dress shredding on thorns, her bare feet leaving crimson footprints in the snow. She collapsed against an ancient oak, sobs tearing from her throat until she had nothing left. And then she felt it, a presence stirring in the darkest part of her chest, something that had been sleeping for 23 years. A voice ancient, vast, and terrifyingly powerful echoed through her mind. He rejected us. He called us weak. He called us worthless. He threw away a queen like trash. Kael's eyes snapped open. Tears still streamed down her face, but her irises were no longer brown. They were glowing a brilliant, lethal gold. When Kael opened her eyes, the forest was draped in velvet black. She sat up slowly, her body humming with a strange electric energy that made the air around her shimmer. She looked at her reflection in frost on a nearby leaf. Her face was smudged with dirt and dried tears, but she felt different, stronger, more real than she had ever felt in her life. Her senses exploded outward. She could hear a rabbit's heartbeat 50 feet away. She could hear sap moving through the oak behind her. She could smell distant wolves from packlands miles back, each scent distinct and identifiable, like names written in the air. Finally, the voice purred, deep as ancient stones grinding together. "You are awake. We have waited so long for the seal to break." Kael froze. "Who are you?" "I am you," the voice replied, carrying 1,000 years of authority. "I am the part they buried beneath blood magic and lies. I am the predator they feared. I am your wolf. I am everything they told you that you could never be." "But I don't have a wolf," Kael whispered. "The healer tested me. She said my bloodline was defective." The healer was blind, or she was complicit in hiding the truth. We were not absent, Kael. We were sealed, bound by ancient blood magic when you were an infant. Your power was a beacon that had to be extinguished, or you would have been killed before you could speak. Images flooded her mind like a dam breaking. A woman with golden eyes and long, dark hair, heavily pregnant, stumbling through a burning city. Kael could smell the smoke, acrid and choking. She could hear screams echoing through narrow streets. Bodies in the roads. Women, children, elders. None spared. The woman Seraphina hiding in the ruins, her golden eyes dimming as she poured the last of her life force into her unborn child, weaving a spell in a language Kael suddenly understood. Let her be hidden. Let her be small. Let her be overlooked until the time is right. The spell settled over the infant like a shroud, sealing the power so deep it would appear as absence. "Your mother was Seraphina Nighthollow," the wolf said softly, "the last alpha queen of the original bloodline. When the packs turned on us out of fear and greed, she ran. She was pregnant with you. She sealed your power to protect the last ember. Why did they hunt us? They feared what we are, so they destroyed us. Cities burned, bloodlines ended. The strongest warriors fell to numbers alone." The wolf's voice hardened. "The seal was tied to your heart. It was designed to break gradually when you found your true mate. But when he rejected us so violently, his betrayal shattered the chains your mother died to create. Now, after 23 years of silence, I am free. Kael's hands trembled. What am I? You are not just a wolf, Kael Winters. You are the last living daughter of the Nighthollow bloodline, the last true Alpha Queen. Draven called me a biological error. He had no idea, the wolf purred with dark satisfaction, that he was rejecting the very thing his ancestors tried to destroy. How? Kael asked. I don't even know how to shift. Close your eyes. Stop fighting the heat in your blood. Stop being afraid. Stop apologizing for existing. Just let go. Kael took a deep breath. She let go of the fear that had defined her entire existence. She let go of the shame of being different, of being lesser. She let go of Draven and his cold eyes. She let go of the pack that never accepted her. She let go of everything except one blazing truth. She was more than what they had told her. Heat flooded her veins like molten gold. It raced along her bones, her muscles, her very DNA, awakening things that had slept for 23 years. It felt like coming home. Her bones didn't break. They shifted, flowed, reformed like water, finding a new shape. It didn't hurt at all. It felt right. Perfect. When she opened her eyes, the world was sharper, clearer, vibrant in ways she had never experienced. She looked down. Instead of hands, she saw massive silver-white paws. She was standing on 4 powerful legs, covered in thick, shimmering fur that caught and reflected moonlight. She was enormous, far larger than any alpha wolf she had ever seen. Look at us, the wolf purred. Look at what that blind boy threw away. Kael walked on trembling legs to the nearby stream. A creature of pure myth stared back from the water. A massive wolf with eyes that blazed like liquid gold, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. For the first time in her life, Kael didn't feel weak. She didn't feel broken. She didn't feel like a mistake. She felt unstoppable. Good, the wolf said. Now we don't go back to beg. We make a plan. What kind of plan? Give me 3 years. I will make you a queen no wolf can ignore. In 3 years, you walk back into his territory, and he falls to his knees. Kael's lips pulled back, revealing razor-sharp fangs. Deal. She threw back her head and howled. The sound wasn't a wolf's howl. It was deeper, richer, carrying harmonics that spoke of ancient power and absolute authority. It echoed through the forest, shaking the trees and sending every prey animal bolting in terror. It was the howl of a queen claiming her throne. Miles away, in his chambers, Draven Blackwell felt a chill run down his spine, his wolf silent since the rejection suddenly surged forward with a desperate, mournful howl that tore from his throat unbidden. Mate. That's our mate. What have we done? But it was too late. By sunrise, Kael was gone, and Draven Blackwell had no idea he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. 3 years changed everything. The Ironvale Summit was held once every 3 years, the most important event in the shifter world. Alphas negotiated treaties, forged alliances, and displayed their power like weapons laid out on velvet. This year, the Shadowfang Pack was hosting. Draven Blackwell stood at the grand entrance of the Great Hall, looking every inch the apex predator. He was 30 now, alpha for 2 years since his father's retirement. Black leather, silver-plated armor, dark hair swept back, golden eyes surveying arriving delegations with practiced authority. Beside him stood Vivian in blood-red silk, her platinum hair braided with jewels. She smiled at arriving alphas, playing the gracious hostess. They had performed the binding ceremony 2 years ago, the formal blood oath that legally joined their houses. But the sacred soul bond, the spiritual connection that made true mates inseparable, had never formed. Draven's wolf stayed sullen and silent, refusing to acknowledge Vivian despite every effort. It was a marriage of politics, not passion. Everyone knew it. But Draven wasn't focused on politics. As he stood there greeting guests, his mind drifted backward. He thought about a white dress with yellowed lace, about a voice breaking with sobs, about brown eyes filled with betrayal. 3 years since the rejection. 3 years of telling himself he had made the right choice. Vivian brought gold, alliances, power. She was perfect on paper, but she wasn't Kael. Alpha Blackwell. A guard approached. A final delegation has arrived. They're not on the guest list, sir. A convoy of 4 black vehicles rolled up the mountain road. Sleek, expensive, completely unmarked. Every pack displayed their crest with pride on their transports. These were blank, anonymous. The vehicles stopped. The air temperature dropped 10 degrees. The lead door opened, and she stepped out. Draven's heart stopped. The woman was breathtaking, tailored black suit with gold thread that moved like liquid. Long dark hair and glossy waves past her shoulders, skin glowing with almost divine health. She moved with a predator's grace, silent, confident, lethal. But it was her eyes that froze his blood. They were gold, molten, blazing gold that held the sun's fire. 2 massive guards flanked her as she walked toward the entrance. Every wolf she passed stopped to stare. They didn't just look. They bowed instinctively, unconsciously. Their wolves recognizing a power their human minds couldn't comprehend. The wind shifted. Draven caught her scent. Moonflower and rain and raw, overwhelming power. His wolf, dormant for 3 years, suddenly exploded forward with a deafening howl. Mate, mate, my mate has returned. No, Draven breathed. It can't be. The woman stopped 5 feet away. She tilted her head with a small, cold smile. Alpha Blackwell, she said, her voice like silk wrapped around a blade. It's been a long time. 3 years, if I'm counting correctly. Draven stared. This couldn't be her. The shy, broken girl was gone. This woman looked like she could command armies. Kael? He choked. Her smile widened, but her eyes stayed winter cold. Not anymore. That girl, weak, powerless, worthless. Kael Winters. She died 3 years ago, in the snow. Froze to death alone in the forest you banished her to. Tragic, really. Forgotten by everyone. She paused, letting the guilt twist deeper. I go by Queen Nighthollow now, last daughter of the Alpha Queen bloodline, ruler of the Ashen Wilds. She held up a rolled parchment bearing the Shadowfang Summit seal. It's a pleasure to see you again. I do hope you and your bonded mate are well. Please give Luna Vivian my regards. She said bonded mate like it tasted of ashes. Without waiting for a response, she walked past him and into the great hall, as if she owned every stone. Draven stood frozen. Blood dripped from his palms where his own claws had pierced his skin. Vivian's hand clamped on his arm. Who was that woman, Draven? Who does she think she is? He couldn't answer, couldn't form words, couldn't think past the roaring in his ears and his wolf's desperate howling. Because the worthless girl he'd rejected, the girl he'd publicly humiliated and cast out to die, had just walked back into his life. And she wasn't broken anymore. She was a queen, and judging by the cold satisfaction in those golden eyes, she wasn't here to beg. She was here to destroy him. The great hall fell into electric silence the moment Kael crossed the threshold. Every conversation died. Every head turned. Even the servants froze. She walked down the center aisle like she owned it, spine straight, head high, golden eyes scanning with cool assessment. Her guards remained at the entrance. Their presence wasn't necessary. The power radiating from Kael made that abundantly clear. She chose a seat at a center table with deliberate calculation, not the front where powerful alphas sat, not the back with the smaller packs, the strategic middle. "Why here?" she asked her wolf silently. "Because a queen doesn't announce herself from the front. We sit where we choose. We make them come to us." Whispers spread like wildfire. "Who is she?" "Those eyes, gold. I've never seen that color. Nighthollow? That bloodline was extinct. Feel her aura. That's not normal wolf energy." At the platform, Draven sat beside Vivienne, physically unable to look away. His mind raced, trying to reconcile the girl he remembered with this devastating woman. Vivienne leaned close. "You need to find out who she is. If she's what she claims, she's a threat. Other packs will." "She's Kael," Draven said quietly. Vivienne froze. "What?" "That's Kael Winters, the girl I rejected 3 years ago." Horror and rage cycled through Vivienne's face. "That pathetic, wolfless human is now a queen?" Her voice rose despite her efforts. "She was nobody. You said so yourself. You called her." "Lower your voice," Draven snapped, aware of nearby alphas turning to listen. But it was too late. Kael heard every word with her heightened senses. Her head turned slowly, deliberately, golden eyes locking onto Vivienne with laser intensity. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Kael stood with fluid grace. The simple act brought absolute silence. "Wolfless!" she called out, her voice carrying clearly musical and dangerous like a finely forged blade. "Is that what you're calling me, Luna Blackwell?" Here, in front of all these distinguished guests? Vivienne flushed scarlet. "I didn't. I wasn't." "Please don't let me interrupt," Kael said smoothly. "You were discussing my defects. By all means, continue. I'm fascinated to hear what the bonded mate of the Shadowfang Alpha has to say about my supposed worthlessness." A collective intake of breath swept through the assembled wolves. Kael began walking toward the platform. Wolves scrambled aside. Chairs scraped violently across stone. Some pressed against walls, unable to resist the compulsion to submit. Power intensified, with each step no longer concealed. It pressed against everyone, like the air pressure dropping before a tornado. Draven stood, every instinct screaming. "Kael, Queen Nighthollow," she corrected, her voice cracking like a whip. "We are not familiar, Alpha Blackwell. You made that abundantly clear 3 years ago." She stopped at the base of the platform and looked up at them both. "Allow me to correct some misconceptions." The room was silent enough to hear snow falling outside. 3 years ago, Kael said, voice clear and steady, "I stood in this very hall. I waited for my goddess-chosen mate to claim our bond. Instead, I was rejected. Publicly, brutally, called weak, wolfless, worthless." Draven's wolf howled inside him pure anguish. Every word she spoke found the gaps in his armor. Alpha Blackwell was right about one thing, she continued. I didn't have a wolf then, but not because I was defective. She smiled coldly. My power was sealed. Sealed by my mother, the last Alpha Queen, to protect me from the very wolves who now stare at me with their jaws hanging open. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The seal broke the night I was rejected, Kael said, power rolling through her words like distant thunder. The trauma shattered it, and I discovered what I truly am. She raised her right hand and shifted it. Her hand transformed into a massive silver-furred paw tipped with obsidian claws, easily the size of a dinner plate. The transformation was fluid, effortless, as natural as breathing. The hall erupted into chaos. Kael held up the transformed paw calmly, rotating it so everyone could see. Then she shifted it back as smoothly as she'd changed it. Not a weak Omega, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. But the last living heir to the Nighthollow throne, the last daughter of the original Alpha bloodline that walked these lands 1,000 years before your packs existed. She turned to Draven, and the weight of her gaze was crushing. So thank you, Alpha Blackwell, she said, voice dripping with venom and dark satisfaction. Thank you for rejecting me. Thank you for breaking my heart. Thank you for casting me out to die. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a dangerous purr that somehow carried to every corner of the hall. Because that night, you didn't destroy me. You set me free. She turned and walked back to her seat with perfect composure, picked up her wine, and took a slow sip as if she hadn't just shattered his entire world. Draven sat down heavily, his legs unable to support him. His wolf was howling with anguish and desperate longing. Mate! Powerful! Perfect! Queen! We rejected a queen. And looking at Kael calm, radiant, sipping wine surrounded by chaos, he understood with devastating clarity what he had thrown away. Not just a mate, not even just a queen. The only person who had ever looked at him and seen Draven, not the future Alpha, and he had crushed that love like it meant nothing. The tension from Kael's revelation still hung in the air like smoke when Draven stood to make his announcement. The summit's second day will feature the hunt, he said, his voice carrying Alpha authority despite the turmoil inside him. A test of skill, strategy, and dominance. This year, I have elevated the stakes. Every wolf leaned forward. The white stag has been spotted in the northern woods. Excited murmurs swept the hall. The white stag was pure legend, a massive creature with fur like snow and antlers of crystalline light. It appeared once every decade, a direct messenger of the moon goddess herself. To hunt it was a feat that entered pack history. The wolf who brings it back, Draven continued, will earn the right to request one favor from any pack present. No questions asked, no refusals permitted under summit law. This is it, Kael's wolf purred. Our path to the council, win the hunt, claim the seat. A mocking voice cut through the anticipation. Not participating, Queen Nighthollow? Kael Thornblood stepped forward. A massive wolf built like a siege engine, 6.5 feet of muscle and battle scars. Alpha of the Iron Ridge Pack. His reputation was built on cruelty. I don't need to chase a deer to prove my strength, Kael replied smoothly. Kael laughed. Scared you'll embarrass yourself? Silver eyes and pretty speeches, but we all remember the pathetic Omega who couldn't even grow a tail. Kael didn't move, but her golden eyes flashed with lethal light. Careful, Alpha Thornblood. I'd hate to embarrass you before the hunt even begins. You're already sweating in the presence of someone you just called an omega. How do you think that makes you look? His smirk died. As the sun touched the peaks the following evening, wolves gathered at the forest's edge, stripping off clothing, preparing for the shift. The scent of adrenaline was thick enough to chew. Kael remained apart, leaning against a weathered pine, still fully dressed, watching with the detached assessment of a general studying her troops. Draven's howl split the air, a command that resonated in every wolf's bones. The forest exploded with transformation. Bones cracked and reformed. Skin rippled as fur sprouted in waves. Within seconds, the clearing was filled with wolves of every size and color, and they surged into the forest like a river of fur and fangs and desperate ambition. Kael watched them go. She waited until the sounds faded completely. Then she pushed away from the tree and walked deeper into shadow. "Ready?" Her wolf purred. "Always." The shift was instantaneous. One moment a woman, the next a creature of legend, a massive silver-white wolf, easily twice the size of Draven's impressive form. Her fur shimmered like liquid moonlight, her paws heavy as sledgehammers, tipped with obsidian claws. Her eyes blazed with golden fire. She threw her head back and howled. It wasn't the cry of a wolf. It was the song of the old-world harmonics that spoke of ancient power and absolute authority. In the forest, every wolf froze mid-stride. The wind stopped blowing. Prey animals went silent. The queen was hunting. Kael moved through the ancient forest like a ghost made of moonlight. Her senses painted a complete map of the world around her. She could feel a mouse's heartbeat 3 miles away. She could track heat signatures of packs crashing through underbrush. She filtered out the cascade of scents until she found it faint, ethereal, like honeysuckle mixed with untouched snow. The white stag. She found it in a clearing bathed in pure moonlight. It was more magnificent than the stories claimed. Fur so white it seemed to glow from within. Crystal antlers branching outward like a tree made of captured starlight. 7 feet tall at the shoulder, grazing with regal indifference as if it knew no predator could touch it. A familiar scent hit her. Cedar and winter thunder. Draven. His massive black wolf emerged from the opposite tree line, golden eyes locked on the stag, muscles coiling to launch. He hadn't seen her. Kael moved faster than thought. She hit him mid-leap with the force of an avalanche silver blur colliding with black shadow in mid-air. They went down in a violent tangle of snapping jaws and snarls, leaving deep gouges in the frozen earth. She pinned him with contemptuous ease. Her massive paws drove into his shoulders, holding him immobile. Her jaws hovered inches from his throat, golden eyes burning into his with absolute authority. "Mine," she growled into his mind. His wolf went still in instinctive submission. The mate bond exploded between them like a detonation, not the thin, aching thread that haunted his dreams, but a roaring inferno. For one electrically charged moment, they stayed frozen. Alpha pinned beneath Queen. Then she released him and bolted toward the clearing. The stag, startled by the commotion, was running white lightning heading toward the northern cliffs. Kael gave chase, her powerful legs eating up ground in great bounding leaps. She caught up at the cliff's edge where ancient stones marked some forgotten boundary. The beast turned, crystal antlers lowered defensively. "We're not going to kill it," her wolf said suddenly, with surprising gentleness. "What? We need the prize. We don't need its blood to claim its power. Trust me." Kael shifted back to human form. She knelt in the snow and frost, bowing her head, exposing the vulnerable back of her neck. "I mean you no harm, sacred messenger," she said softly. "I seek only guidance for my people's future. I ask for your blessing, not your life." The stag studied her for an eternity. Then it approached. It walked right up to her kneeling form and lowered its glowing head with deliberate slowness, touching its nose to the center of her forehead. Power flooded through her like a tidal wave. Warm, ancient, impossibly pure, divine energy, a direct blessing from the moon goddess herself, confirming her right to rule. When Kael opened her eyes, tears streaming from the intensity, the stag was gone. It had vanished into mist, leaving no tracks. But lying in the snow where it had stood was a single shed antler, glowing with soft, pulsing blue-white light. Heavy breathing behind her. She didn't need to turn to know who it was. Draven stood at the edge of the clearing in his massive black wolf form, completely still, staring at her with undisguised awe. He had seen the moon goddess touch her. Kael stood, picked up the glowing antler, and looked directly at him. "I didn't kill it," she said clearly. "The goddess's messenger offered this freely, a divine blessing given in recognition of my bloodline." She shifted and ran toward the great hall, leaving the alpha of the Shadowfang pack standing alone in shadow, his world forever changed. When Kael walked back into the great hall, the returning hunters were already boasting about their kills. Most were covered in mud and fresh scratches, proudly displaying the deer or elk they'd brought down. The moment she stepped through the massive doors, every voice died. She was back in her tailored suit. Though the fabric was torn in places and her feet were bare, her skin still glowing faintly with residual divine energy. But she carried herself with such absolute authority that she might as well have been wearing a crown. In her right hand, held high for all to see, was the glowing antler of the white stag. The light was so bright it cast dancing shadows against the obsidian walls and made the torches seem dim. She walked straight down the center aisle. She placed the crystal antler at Draven's feet with deliberate precision. "The white stag," she said, her voice clear and cold, as requested. The hall exploded. Whispers became shouts. "She did it!" The goddess blessed her. "I saw the light from the eastern ridge, a true queen." Kain Thornblood shoved forward, face purple with rage. "That's not a kill," he roared. "The hunt rules state we must bring back the white stag. That's a shed antler." She found trash on the forest floor. Kael turned to face him with winter-cold eyes. "You're right. I didn't kill it." The sacred messenger of the moon goddess approached me freely, acknowledged my bloodline, and offered this antler as a divine blessing. She picked it up and held it high. "If you believe a naturally shed antler given by the goddess herself is worth less than the dead deer you chased through mud, then by all means challenge it before the assembled council. Argue that your blooded buck is a greater prize than a divine blessing." The hall went silent. No alpha was foolish enough to argue against a clear sign from the goddess. Kain's mouth opened and closed. Nothing came out. "I thought not," Kael said. Draven stared at the antler, then raised his eyes to meet hers. His gaze was thick with tangled emotion, regret, awe, and a new, terrifying respect. "You win," he said quietly. "Name your favor, Queen Nighthollow." Kael let the silence build for 3 deliberate heartbeats. "I want a seat on the Council of Alphas." The silence was so complete, she could have heard a pin strike the stone floor. The Council of Alphas, the most exclusive governing body in the shifter world. Only the 7 strongest pack leaders held permanent seats. They decided laws, determined boundaries, declared wars, shaped the future. The council was male-dominated, ancient, and had never granted a seat to a woman or anyone without an established pack. Vivian shot to her feet. "You don't even have a pack!" She shrieked. "You can't hold a council seat without a pack. It's against every law we have. You're just a girl with a piece of bone." "Then I invoke the right of founding," Kael said, turning to the elder, "as set forth in the original Summit Accords, before the council even existed." Several older alphas straightened in recognition. "The right of founding states that any wolf of royal bloodline may claim unclaimed ancestral lands and found a new pack with full recognition under Summit law. This right predates the council itself." The elder's eyes widened. "That law hasn't been invoked in 300 years. But it still stands," Kael said firmly. "I am royal bloodline, the last daughter of the Nighthollow throne, and I claim what my ancestors held before your packs existed." She turned back to the assembled crowd, and her voice rose with natural authority. "I am Kael Nighthollow, last daughter of the original Alpha line, rightful heir to the Nighthollow throne. As of this moment, I am claiming the unclaimed lands of the Ashen Wilds by ancient right of blood. The Obsidian Peaks, the Sunless Valley, the Silent Forest. They belonged to my ancestors, and now they belong to me. I am founding the Nighthollow Pack." She took a deliberate step toward the center of the hall. Her golden eyes swept over the wolves standing at the back, the Omegas, the lone wolves, the forgotten ones. "Any wolf who has been rejected," she said, her voice softening but remaining firm. "Any wolf who has been cast out for being weak or deemed unworthy by alphas too small to see their potential, you are welcome in my lands. I do not offer you a place as servants. I offer you a place as warriors, as valued members, as family. Under my moon, you will never be alone again." The silence held for one breath. 2. "I'll join!" a young Omega shouted from the back, stepping forward with tears streaming down his face. "Me too." A scarred she-wolf raised her hand. "Long live Queen Nighthollow." The cry was taken up by dozens of voices. Wolves surged forward, a dozen, then 20, then 50, then 100. They flooded toward her from every corner of the hall. Outcasts, orphans, wolves who had been beaten down by the very system that claimed to protect them. Kael looked at Draven, who stood gripping his stone armrest so hard the material was cracking under his fingers. In one night, she had gained a pack of loyal followers. She had gained valuable territory. She had gained a seat at the most powerful table in the shifter world, and she had done it all while making him watch every single moment. The look in her golden eyes said it all. This is only the beginning. That night, the air on the balcony of Kael's guest suite was freezing, but she didn't feel it. She stood at the stone railing, looking out over the moonlit packlands. In the distance, dozens of campfires burned where the wolves who had pledged themselves to the Nighthollow Pack were celebrating. Their voices carried faintly on the wind, full of hope, a sound she hadn't heard in 3 years. She knew he was coming before the door opened. The scent of dark pine and winter thunder arrived first, wrapping around her like a phantom embrace. "He's close," the wolf whispered. "I know. You can't avoid me forever, Kael." Draven's voice came from the doorway. It was rough, strained, stripped of the Alpha's commanding mask. This was the voice of a man, not a leader. "I'm not avoiding you, Draven," she said without turning. I'm ignoring you. There's an important difference. He stepped onto the balcony. The mate bond was screaming between them, a jagged, raw wound pulsing with every heartbeat. Kael, he said, and there was so much pain in the word it nearly broke her resolve. We need to talk. About what happened 3 years ago. About what I saw tonight. About everything. About what? She finally turned to face him. About how you rejected me in front of 400 wolves? About how you called me worthless? Or maybe you want to talk about how you chose a woman who smells like sulfur and ambition because you were too afraid, too weak to bond with someone you couldn't control? Each word was precisely placed to wound, and she watched with grim satisfaction as each one landed. Draven flinched. I made a mistake. A catastrophic, unforgivable mistake that has haunted every moment of the last 3 years. A mistake? The laugh that escaped her was sharp and bitter. You destroyed me, Draven. You took the one thing I had left, my hope that I was worth something to someone, and you threw it in the dirt. You humiliated me. You watched me run into the forest to die. And you didn't even look back. I know, he said, his voice cracking. And I've lived with that image every day. Every time I close my eyes, I see your face. I hear your voice begging me not to do it. I was a coward. I was thinking about pack strength and alliances and bloodlines. I thought Vivian was the smart choice. And I was wrong, Draven said, stepping closer, his golden eyes raw with desperation. She's not you, Kael. She will never be you. My wolf hasn't spoken a single word to me since the day you left, because he knows. We both know I threw away the only thing that ever mattered. That's not my problem, Kael said coldly. You made your choice. You chose a pureblood over your mate. You chose political power over a gift from the goddess. Now you have to live in the palace you built. The mate bond is broken. You severed it, Draven. You said the words. It's not severed. He stepped into her space, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. I can still feel it. It's damaged, bleeding, but it's still there, pulling us together, and I know you can feel it too. Her heart hammered, because he was right. The bond was a constant aching presence, humming in the darkness, demanding she reach out and touch him. What do you want from me, Draven? I want you back, he whispered. I want to fix this. I want to spend every day for the rest of my life proving that I'm worthy of standing beside you. You want me to forgive you? A single tear escaped her iron control, tracking down her cheek like liquid gold. You want me to forget 3 years of rebuilding myself from ashes? No, I don't expect you to forget. I just want you to let me earn it. However long it takes. Give me one chance. She stared at him. Rage and longing, hate and love. The desire for revenge and the desperate need to be held. For a heartbeat, she wanted to say yes. Then she remembered his face 3 years ago. The certainty, the coldness. No, she said, and her voice became as hard as stone. Draven's face fell. You made your choice, Draven Blackwell, she said, walking past him toward the door. You chose Vivienne. You chose gold and alliances and reputation. You chose the Shadowfang Pack's future over your own mate. She paused at the threshold and looked back one final time. Now you can watch me take it all away from you, piece by piece, until you understand exactly what you lost. She walked into her suite and closed the door with a soft, final click. She left the alpha of the Shadowfang Pack alone on the balcony under cold stars, feeling for the first time in his privileged life what it was like to be truly, utterly, devastatingly powerless. The summit's third and final night was meant to be a celebration. The great hall had been transformed, long tables overflowing with roasted boar, fresh bread, aged wine. Wolves from dozens of packs mingled, their voices creating a hum of negotiation and cautious alliance. But the air felt wrong. Too heavy, too charged with something dark and waiting. Kael sat at her table, surrounded by the wolves who had pledged themselves to the Nighthollow pack. They were outcasts omegas, with scarred backs, lone wolves who had survived on scraps, shifters whose spirits had been nearly broken. But sitting with Kael, their heads were held high. Someone had finally seen their worth. She was explaining her vision for the Ashen Wilds when a cold shiver raced down her spine. Her wolf didn't just growl. She stood on end, hackles raised. Danger. The shadows are moving. Prepare yourself. The massive reinforced doors exploded inward. Rogues poured into the room like a flood of violence. Dozens of them, their eyes glowing that sick, unnatural blood red that marked them as feral. They shifted with ragged, desperate violence that spoke of madness. Screams erupted. Tables overturned. Alphas scrambled to defend their mates. At the head of the rogue pack stood a massive gray wolf. Fur matted with old blood, deep white scars crisscrossing his muzzle. He shifted back to human form and stood naked and shameless in the center of the carnage. Kael Thornblood. "Hello, little queen," he called out, his voice rasping. "Did you truly think I would let you humiliate me without consequences?" Draven stepped forward, his alpha aura exploding outward like a shockwave. "This is a summit under sacred truce, Kael. You are violating the oldest pack law in existence." "I don't follow the laws of weaklings," Kael spat. He pointed a clawed finger at Kael. "She's the last of her bloodline. Do you know what her blood is worth? It can heal the dying, grant the strength of 10 alphas, extend life for centuries." Horror washed through the hall. "You'll have to go through me," Draven growled, his body already rippling with impending transformation. Gladly, the rogues attacked. The great hall became a slaughterhouse. Wolves clashed in a frenzy of survival. Blood, hot and metallic, filled the air. Kael shifted instantly, her massive silver-white form bursting forth with a flash of moonlight. She moved through the rogues like a blade through wheat, jaws crushing bone, claws tearing through muscle with terrifying efficiency. But Kael had planned for her. A rogue tackled her from behind. Teeth sank into her shoulder. Then another grabbed her leg. Within seconds, 5 rogues swarmed her, their combined weight dragging the Alpha Queen toward the blood-slicked floor. Then she heard a roar that shook the very foundation of the fortress. Draven's massive black wolf tore through the crowd like a hurricane given physical form. He hit the rogues, pinning Kael with the force of a battering ram, scattering them across the room. He stood over her, dark fur bristling, lips pulled back in a snarl that promised death. "Mine." His wolf's voice boomed into the mind of every shifter present, a command so primal it made the walls vibrate. "Touch her and die." Kael shifted into his gray wolf and charged. The 2 alphas collided midair in an explosion of fur and savagery. Draven was the stronger wolf by far, but Kael fought dirty, going for belly, throat, eyes. Kane's jaws suddenly clamped around Draven's throat. Dark blood spurted. Draven's eyes flickered with pain. Something primal and ancient awakened in Kael's chest. She saw red. She surged to her feet with a roar that wasn't quite wolf and wasn't quite human. Something older, something that predated both. Her silver fur ignited with cold moonlit fire. She launched herself at Kain with the full, unleashed force of her heritage. She ripped the gray wolf off Draven's throat and threw him 30 feet across the hall. Kain hit the stone wall with a sickening crack. Kael stalked toward him, her silver paws leaving glowing prints on the blood-stained marble. Kain tried to stand, his front leg dangling uselessly, his eyes finally showing pure terror. Her massive paw slammed down on his chest, pinning him to the floor. "You wanted Alpha Queen blood, Kain," her voice echoed in his mind. "Here it is." She lowered her jaws toward his throat. "Kael, stop." Draven's voice. Human. Gasping. She paused, teeth hovering centimeters from Kain's jugular. Draven had shifted back. He was swaying on his feet, one hand pressed to his neck where blood poured through his fingers. "Don't kill him like this. Execute him under pack law. Let the world see justice, not slaughter." She stared into Kain's terrified eyes. Her power demanded blood. But she looked at Draven, at the man who had nearly died defending her despite everything between them. "Fine," she said. "Guards." Nighthollow wolves and Shadowfang warriors rushed forward together, dragging the broken, sobbing Kain toward the dungeons. Kael shifted back and moved toward Draven. "Draven." His amber eyes rolled back. He collapsed. She caught him before he hit the ground. The wound on his neck was turning black. A sickly gray mist rose from the torn flesh like visible poison. Cursed silver teeth. The poison was already spreading through his bloodstream. He was dying. The infirmary was chaos. Healers running, herbs burning, the sharp smell of panic mixing with mountain sage. Draven lay on a stone table, his chest barely moving. The silver poisoning was spreading with horrifying speed, turning his blood to black sludge. Dark veins crawled up his neck like roots of some terrible tree. "We can't stop it," the head healer said, her voice shaking. The silver was coated in a rogue's curse. Old magic, dark magic. It's eating him from the inside. He needs a miracle, or he won't see sunrise. Vivian was on her knees beside the bed, clutching Draven's hand. "Do something," she screamed. "Save him! I will have every one of you executed if he dies." The healers looked away in helpless shame. Kael stepped forward from the doorway. "I can save him." Every head turned. "Alpha Queen blood," she said, looking at the head healer. "It's the only thing in this world that can neutralize a silver curse. My blood doesn't just heal, it purifies. It can burn the poison out of him." The healer's eyes went wide. "A direct transfusion of that magnitude, the life force you'd have to give it, could kill you, my queen. You would be pouring your very essence into him." "It doesn't matter," Kael said simply. Vivienne jumped up, blocking her path. "No, you're not touching him. This is your fault. You brought those rogues here. You just want to claim him while he's weak." Kael didn't look at her. She raised one hand and her aura flared, with such overwhelming intensity that Vivienne was physically thrown backward into the wall, pinned there by sheer power. "Sit down and be silent, Vivienne," Kael said coldly. "If you interrupt again, I will have you removed." She walked to the table. Draven's eyes fluttered open, unfocused, glassy with pain. "Kael?" he rasped, his hand twitching weakly toward hers. "I'm here." She took his cold hand. "I'm here, Draven." "Why?" he breathed. A single tear of blood tracked down his temple. "After everything I did to you, why save me?" Her breath caught. She felt tears burning behind her eyes but refused to let them fall. Because despite 3 years of ice, she whispered, despite the rejection, despite choosing her over me, you are still my mate, and my wolf cannot live in a world where your scent is gone. She turned to the healers. Hold him down. This is going to burn. They gripped Draven's shoulders with trembling hands. Kael partially shifted her right hand, claws extending with a metallic gleam. She sliced a deep, deliberate line across her palm. Golden blood, thick, luminous, glowing with ethereal light, welled up immediately, dripping onto the floor like liquid stars. She pressed her bleeding palm over the black, festering wound on his neck. Draven's back arched violently off the table. A primal scream tore through the infirmary and echoed across the entire packlands. The silver poison fought desperately against the Alpha Queen essence, opposing elements at war inside his veins. White steam hissed from the contact point, smelling of ozone and scorched earth and something ancient. Kael didn't pull away. She leaned into the pain, feeling her own life force flowing out of her and into him. Her wolf grew quiet and weak, giving everything to stabilize his dying spirit. The room spun. Her vision blurred. She tasted copper, but she kept her hand pressed firm until the black veins began to recede, replaced by the warm, healthy glow of her magic knitting his flesh back together. Finally, the wound closed completely. The poison was gone, burned away. Kael pulled her hand away. Her legs turned to water. She swayed. Draven's eyes opened clear, vibrant gold. He looked at her with wonder and gratitude and something deeper that made her heart clench. "Thank you," he whispered, reaching for her. She didn't take his hand. She couldn't. If she touched him now, she would shatter completely. She turned and walked out of the infirmary on unsteady legs. Outside in the cold corridor, she slid down the stone wall to the floor, exhausted beyond measure. "You saved him," her wolf murmured weakly. "I know." "Why?" Kael closed her eyes. "Because I'm a fool," she whispered to the empty hallway. "Or because my crown means nothing if he isn't there to see me wear it." 6 months changed everything. The morning after the battle, Draven dissolved his blood oath with Vivian publicly. She left in fury, but without a leg to stand on. Every wolf at the summit had witnessed her failure to act while her alpha lay dying. It was Kael, the woman she'd mocked, who had nearly given her own life to save him. And then Draven Blackwell began to court Kael Nighthollow properly. He didn't beg, he didn't demand. He proved himself in 1,000 small ways. He respected her boundaries. He supported her decisions without trying to control them. He stood beside her when other alphas on the council questioned a woman at their table, and he shut them down without hesitation. He brought her wildflowers from the meadow where their bond had first snapped into place. He sat with her through nightmares about the rejection, holding her while she cried, never once making excuses or asking for forgiveness he hadn't earned. He helped build the Nighthollow pack with his own hands, personally overseeing construction in the Ashen Wilds, sharing resources, training her warriors. He attended every council meeting as her staunchest defender. And slowly, carefully, Kael let the walls come down. 3 weeks before the coronation, under a full moon in the sacred grove, she let the bond complete. The moment their souls truly connected, it felt like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. The frayed, damaged thread became a rope of golden fire, binding them in a way that transcended flesh and blood. 2 halves of one whole, finally united. Now Kael stood at the center of the great hall, the same hall where she'd been rejected, the same hall where she'd revealed her true nature, the same hall where she'd nearly lost him. She wore silver silk that pooled like moonlight around her feet. Her dark hair was crowned with ancient moonstones that had belonged to her mother. Beside her, Draven wore black alpha armor, his golden eyes never once leaving her face. The elder lifted the ceremonial chalice. We witness the birth of a new era, the union of two bloodlines, two halves of the shifter soul, finally united. He turned to Draven. Draven Blackwell, do you take Kael Nighthollow as your queen, your mate, and your equal? I do, Draven said, his voice ringing with absolute conviction. Kael Nighthollow, do you take Draven Blackwell as your alpha, your mate, and your partner? Kael smiled, not the cold, calculated smile she'd worn at the summit, but a real one, warm and radiant, and full of hard-won peace. I do. The elder cut their palms, their blood mingled gold and red swirling together. Brilliant white light filled the room, so intense that every wolf dropped to their knees. The moon goddess herself, descending to bless the union. I present Alpha Draven and Queen Kael, bonded mates and allied rulers of the Northern Territories. The cheers were deafening. Draven pulled Kael into a deep kiss as the completed mate bond blazed between them like a newborn star. Finally whole, finally right. That night, on their balcony overlooking the thriving packlands, Kael leaned into Draven's warmth. Below them, the fires of both packs burned bright. I have a secret, she whispered, taking his hand and placing it gently on her still, flat stomach. Draven's eyes went wide. Are you saying? I'm pregnant, she said, smiling through happy tears. We're having a baby. He let out a sound of pure joy that echoed across the mountains. He picked her up carefully and spun her, laughing against the stars. An heir, he breathed against her hair. An heir to both bloodlines. Not just an heir, Kael corrected softly. A promise. That strength comes from love, not fear. That the old hatreds stay buried. That no child will ever be told they are worthless because of what they are. Draven set her down and cupped her face in his hands. 3 years ago, I was a fool who couldn't see past his own fear and ambition. I threw away the most precious gift the goddess could give. And I was a broken girl who thought she was nothing, Kael said. Look at us now, Draven whispered, pressing his forehead to hers. You became a queen. You built a pack from outcasts and showed the council what real strength looks like. You saved my life when you had every reason to let me die. You earned it, Kael said firmly. Every single day for 6 months, you proved you were more than the boy who rejected me. You became the man I always knew you could be. I love you, Draven whispered. I loved you then, even when I was too much of a coward to admit it. And I will love you until the stars burn out. I love you too, Kael said. Even when I hated you, even when I wanted revenge, even when I told myself I'd moved on. My wolf knew. She always knew. They stood together under the moon, 2 souls finally united, 2 packs finally at peace. 3 years ago, a rejection had sent a girl into the forest to die. Tonight, a queen was bringing new life into a world she had saved. And as dawn broke over their united territories, painting the sky in shades of gold and silver, they knew their story was just beginning. The last Alpha Queen had claimed her throne. But more importantly, she had claimed her heart. And this time, no one would ever take it away. In the years that followed, the Nighthollow-Blackwell alliance became the stuff of legend. Their daughter, born with golden eyes and a silver wolf form, grew to unite the shifter world in ways no one had dared imagine. The Council of Alphas, once dominated by fear and tradition, slowly transformed under Kael's guidance into a body that valued loyalty over bloodline and heart over heritage. And in the Ashen Wilds, the Nighthollow Pack thrived, a sanctuary for the rejected, the overlooked, the forgotten. A place where every wolf, regardless of rank or lineage, could find home. Every year, on the anniversary of the hunt, Kael would return to the sacred grove where the white stag had blessed her, and every year she would whisper the same prayer. Thank you for the rejection that set me free. Thank you for the pain that made me strong. Thank you for the broken road that led me home. Because sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in the darkest moments. And sometimes you have to lose everything to discover what you are truly made of.